Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Minnesota Twins Out of the Park 23, where we had a good end to the season. As you could kind of tell right off the bat, we did end up making the playoffs. Crazily enough, the Chicago White Sox, who were 10 plus games ahead of us in the division at multiple points during the year, do not make the playoffs. We sweep them. I believe it was a sweep. Nope. We win 2 out of 3 from them at the end of the year to knock them out. What's really rough is this 4 game sweep or 3 game sweep from Detroit takes us out of the number 2 seed, which is problematic because now it means that we are playing in the wild card round. And with Byron Buxton's almost being back, we now have to play that series without him. Whereas we'll have him back in time if we do end up getting through this first round. So that's a little unfortunate. The other unfortunate piece of news is the Sonny Gray injury, with the torn labrum in September, mid September as well. Has definitely put us in not a great spot pitching wise going into the playoffs, and has created now another interesting decision for us. And now we'll get more into the off season after the playoffs are done. But Sonny Gray's team option no longer is a guaranteed pickup to me. The 5 month recovery time puts him finishing recovery in February. So it's probably still a pickup, but it is a $12 million contract for an age 33 pitcher coming off of shoulder surgery. And kind of similar to Bundy, of having that same type of problem, um, with a pretty similar team option, except Bundy is younger, but I don't think Bundy's as good. So those are two very interesting pitching decisions that we'll have to make in the offseason about guys that I think without these injuries, I probably pick up both of the options, but now it's much more of a question. The other thing is Kenta Maeda is back and healthy. I have him on the roster just because I trust Chris Archer that little for the playoffs, but we will see whether he actually gets use. The plan for me is to actually play these games. I'm not going to put them on the video, except for maybe in the World Series I will, but otherwise, just I think the videos will get too long if I do that. So I think that's probably what's going to happen. We'll play them off stream, but then we will kind of show you the results. So the whole reason why Buxton is actually going to be available is we got this news, which is really big, is that Byron Buxton. I mean, this is a little misleading, right? Of it saying he's available immediately, but still has that torn back muscle 5 days. But I was not expecting him to be available for the playoffs. So that definitely is a boost to our lineup, even though Kyle Isbell has played pretty well for us. He's not Byron Buxton. So Buxton will come back in and take over that role. And Isbell can just kind of be a left-handed bat off the bench. But how did we get to the playoffs? Well, August was incredible. I mean, just this run here of coming out after the All-Star break, this team was just very good. Where we have the 20-loss May that turns into a 20-win August, 17 in October. I mean, we're above 500 every month of the year, basically. I mean, October's 5 games, that doesn't really count. Outside of losing 20 in May. So we end up 2 games behind our Pythagorean, plus 101 run differential is the second best in the American League. The Blue Jays went on a crazy run. Yeah, they won 11 in a row at the end of the year to take the division. I'm glad we do not meet up with the Yankees. We'll play the Red Sox in this first matchup. But yeah, so we end up playing pretty well. We can kind of look at some of the big players. I mean, Carlos Correa is the obvious superstar here. 7.8 WAR. I don't think he'll win MVP over Trout, but it's possible. I think if we do well this year and if we win the World Series somehow, then I think there's a world in which Correa does win it. So let's sort by WAR. Gio Urshela was really good for me this year. What is his? Okay, so he's at this contract situation right now. I don't see us paying this, though this is not a terrible deal. I will have to think about this because this does. Um, okay, this is because he had asked for some bigger contracts earlier, but this is pretty reasonable, I think. I don't love handing out a 7-year deal to an age 30 third baseman. What did the defense? The defensive metrics aren't great even at age 30. He could turn into a first baseman, but I have Miranda, so I don't know. That'll be something to definitely think about. Jorge Polanco had a good year. Max Kepler had a good year. Alex Kirilloff had a good year. Our outfield was very good, kind of just by these numbers. I mean, even Kyle Isbell, after we traded for him, the 65 games with us was a 1.2 WAR player. So I mean, if you kind of work it out to the games with the other guys, he's not far behind him. He's probably a 2.5, 3 WAR player as well. So that was big. Jose Miranda proving to be the much better player over keeping Miguel Sano around. 70 defense at first base is great. Let's see what the fielding stats actually say. Fielding stats say he was fine. But yeah, I mean, the 120 OPS plus, WRC plus, not a ton of home runs, but lots of doubles. I mean, doubles were a thing that you could see was a big thing for this team. Yeah, the offense turned into a pretty good show. Blake Hunt appears to be our catcher of the future, as opposed to Jeffers, which means that we might be shopping Jeffers in the offseason. Because the hard thing here is they're both right-handed bats that are fairly similar. So that kind of just becomes the question now of you're probably just kind of picking one or the other. Jeffers really just has this 2020 year of being good. And obviously you can kind of say the same thing for Hunt, right? Of it's 30 games. But even those 30 games are better than the 2020, and Hunt's a better defensive catcher. So, and the game thinks that he still has some room to grow here. So I'm not super sure where this 55 potential comes from. There's just like that, I guess, and a little bit more power. I mean, 6 home runs. Yeah, like he's not a. There's more potential there, but Garlic is up to hit lefties. This will create an interest. I do have an interesting question now for this playoff series. We can see we get Sale and Paxton, which are 2 lefties, which means we have the question of do we start Kyle Garlic in the wild card round over Kepler or Kirilloff, who were both 3 WAR players. The answer is probably not, but it's something that will be in question because even though he does hit lefties really well, I mean, so does Trey Mancini, so does Jose Miranda. Those are kind of some of the other spots. I mean, Kirilloff was very good against lefties. He actually has reverse splits. Whereas Kepler would be probably the potential spot. Or, I mean, even there, it's the above average. But I think what we're going to do is game 1, we will probably play Kepler. And if game 2, if Kepler doesn't do well, then we might go to Garlic. And then if there's a spot against righty, we would swap in Kepler or even put him in later on. Nick Gordon's kind of whatever. What is his? He's not arbitration eligible yet, but I might end up releasing or moving him anyway. Luis Ariz makes me very sad because he's having an incredible year in real life this year, but he's going to be making potentially 3 million in arbitration coming off of a terrible year. He doesn't have a defensive home on this team outside of, I guess, maybe third base if we move on from Urshela, but at the very least Urshela's here for one more year because he does have arbitration, which I will, like, I'm not going to non-tender Urshela. So Arise, so then it's just DH, which, I mean, I don't know that I want to pick up Mancini's $10 million option, but I wouldn't be opposed to bringing him back on a less money deal. And at that point, with how bad Arise was, there's bats in AAA even that could potentially do this job. Spencer Steer had a pretty decent year. Hudson Potts had a decent year. There's Royce Lewis. Matt Wallner hit really well in AAA as well after coming from AA. Austin Martin, Trevor Larnack are both options. I don't know that I could afford to pay him $3 million for that type of production. So that's kind of a big question there. On the pitching side of things, okay, we're looking at the postseason. That's fine. Because really the only person who's not here is Chris Archer, who just wasn't ever very good for me. Let's see. So Syndergaard was our trade acquisition, who was really good. We do have these two. I have a little bit of concern, obviously, right now going into the playoffs of two of these last four starts were really bad. Before that, he had like a 1-something ERA for me. But this is two bad starts. And yeah, so there's some questions there. Paddock. There's some questions here. Josh Winder is going to be my guy for game 3, which is terrifying, but he's pitched really well his last 5 starts. He kind of pushed Joe Ryan out because of these last 2 starts for Ryan scare me. Pitched well against Cleveland and against Kansas City, but I don't know, the FIP scares me here. I'm more scared of Joe Ryan, I think, than I am of him. Duran, obviously really good. There's a concern though. I was hoping that if I won the last game and against the White Sox and the Astros lost, that I would win the tiebreaker, but it turns out I didn't. So we end up with Duran at 49% availability, which means I really, really, really do not want to use him in game 1, which is scary, because there are questions for the rest of my bullpen of, I mean, Thielbar was pretty good. Cano has struggled a little bit more towards the end of the year. Cotton's been mostly good, but there's concerns there. He had his rough patches. Alcala, it's been okay. We called up Rozek to be just another lefty, but I don't know how much. And he was good. I mean, obviously 7 innings this year without giving up a run is good. But Thielbar is the lefty I trust. So, I mean, like, kind of it's... Ideally, probably it's Cotton, Thielbar, Cano, and Duran is how I would like to get most of my outs, I think. Maybe Alcala. These guys are kind of here. I mean, these bottom 4 can eat innings for me. Like, I have the ability to eat innings if I have to in a game. And if a game goes into extras, then I'm not super concerned about how long a game goes. I have arms. But I don't have the studs with... Oh, Cotton has 60 stamina. I didn't realize that. Okay, that's really good. That's really, really good, actually. Okay, never mind. I'm actually a lot less concerned now that I noticed that. Yeah, so he can take a couple innings. Because ideally what we do is is we win game one without Duran, and then game two he should hopefully then be healthy, where I can lock down honestly even maybe 3 innings from Duran. Like I'm not scared to go three with him, and I'm not scared to go three with Cotton either. Um, but yeah, so that's sort of where we're at team wise. We end the year number one in runs scored, and we come back to being tied for sixth in runs allowed in the AL. Considering that we were probably at the All Star break, we were 13th, I think, in runs allowed. It's the starting pitching especially just got a lot better in the second half, and that was partially just people regressing to their means, but also we did call up Balazovic, who had a couple of pretty good starts for us. I mean, really, outside of this guy where he gets lit up by Detroit, it's pretty reasonable starts from him. So I would say honestly I'm pretty happy with that. He was the call up for the Sonny Gray injury, but because he wasn't on the 40 man, he's not wouldn't be available to put on the playoff roster because he wasn't on the 40 man at the start of September. But I wouldn't want to go to him in a playoff game anyway. I trust Winder a lot more. I mean, I trust even Joe Ryan more. So that's where we're at there. Yeah, nothing like super notable from prospects or anything in the last bit of the year. We'll do kind of a more of a full rundown of what our off season. So I guess the general game plan moving forward for the next couple of videos is the next video will be the playoffs. It will be whatever we end up, however many rounds of playoffs that we go through. I might, if there's a like Game 7 World Series, I might turn that into actually playing that on camera. But more than likely, it's going to just be I'll play all the games off camera, and I'll kind of come back with updates after each round of games. And then we will see kind of what ends up happening there. Hopefully we are able to win the World Series. I'm not super expecting that here. I don't think we have the guns in the rotation with kind of two of our three best starters on the year being injured. Buxton coming back is really nice, but our lineup's been good. It's pitching that's more concerning to me. And then after that, we will go into an off. So after the playoff video, we will do a kind of postseason kind of rundown of all of the minor league stuff and kind of how we're going to be looking with our minor leagues and what our kind of game plan is for kind of the prospects that I'm following more closely, and then what I think the plan is going to be for the major league team for the off season. And then we'll come back with either and then after that it'll be one or two more videos with kind of what has happened in the off season and then going into the year. So that's sort of where we're going to be looking at moving forward. We did manage to come back from a rough start to the year to win the division by a game over the Kansas City Royals, who finished in second, White Sox in third, and we'll play the Boston Red Sox in the playoffs, who were 7 games above their Pythagorean. Let's actually take a quick look at the Red Sox and kind of see what we're looking at. So a lot of big bats. I think we could see some pretty high scoring games in this. We get Chris Sale in game 1, who hasn't been great. Looks like he's pitched 15 games. He's got some rough starts this last month. So hopefully we can get to him and give us a lead over this lineup that looks like it was pretty good. 7th in runs scored with that? Wow. That's a little surprising to me. Let's see. So for them, Xander Bogaerts is the big stud. Devers and Story had pretty decent years. Miguel Sano with negative 1.3 WAR. Yeah, he was bad. This is why we traded him. I can't imagine Boston will pick up that option either. So I mean, even though like I retained all the salary on that, and it was very worth it to just not have him on the roster. JD Martinez hasn't done great. But yeah, so I think that we match up okay with that. I think pitching wise, this bullpen's not scary to me either. Did Garrett Whitlock start mostly for them this year? I'm guessing, yeah. Um, there's not an arm I'm super scared of. I mean, Matt Barnes, I guess, was pretty. I'm surprised that why do they have him as a middle reliever here? That's a little weird. But I think we can score a lot of runs on this team, and so then the question is just going to be the lineup of can we keep them down enough to win. I think I like our chances here. I'm more scared of Houston or the other East teams. The Yankees and the Blue Jays are both scary. But I think that there's definitely a world where we can. I think we can do some damage. But I think the starting pitching is going to be our biggest limiting factor. So we will see how that goes. But anyway, I hope you guys have a good rest of your day, and I will catch you in the next one. Bye.